Cops of Reddit. What is the most what the fuck happened here moment you've experienced? Former cop. Was a rookie deputy and got this call that a man got his foot caught in a garden tiller and was bleeding profusely. It was a 20-minute drive running code, so I had time to plan out my actions. I figured the ambulance would be about 10 minutes behind me, so I was gonna tourniquet above the knee and I assumed he'd be unconscious and or needing CPR. I get there and it's a big ass farm building with two guys just standing there smoking. I grabbed my medic bag, not a medic, but it had tourniquet, C-collars, gauze etc. I run towards them to ask where the patient was, and they were white as a ghost just smoking, while pointing behind them. I went inside, and behind a big John Deere tractor was a huge PTO-driven tiller about 7 feet wide and 3 feet tall. There was my victim, with his back against the tractor tire. His left leg was sucked in the tiller and wrapped twice around it with the sole of the shoe next to his face and toe pointing towards the left. His femur shot out underneath the tiller and was beautifully white with no blood. He looked up at me and said, "Can you help me?" Now keep in mind, I'm 21. Thought this was a garden tiller and assumed I'd be able to do something, but I was completely out of my element. 2 ambulances, the rural fire department extrication team, a welding company to cut the machine apart on scene, a helicopter and a surgeon that came to amputate on scene. Later he was free. EMT, but I got to jump in on this one. We responded to a call at a Motel 6 near Washington DC. We get to the room and this dude in tighty white ties is screaming incoherently. We go inside and there is a dude about 250 pounds, but naked, covered in baby oil, that was completely unresponsive on a tarp on the ground. We try to get him on the stretcher, but he keeps sliding off. We use the sheets and even curtains to try to get the oil off him. To no avail. We eventually have to call the fire department to help us get him up. And even when we get him on the stretcher, he slides right off. Eventually, we get him strapped in and take him to the hospital. He passed away without ever regaining consciousness. Apparently what happened was this married father of 3 flew to DC to meet his internet boyfriend. One of their kinks was a dude taking Ambien and letting the other guy face fuck him. Doctors suspect that the Ambien caused his epiglottis to relax and baby oil got into his lungs, where it blocked his alveolar. I'm still curious how notifying the family went on that one. Late to the party, but my favorite so far has got to be the tale of the UFO/aliens. I was a cop on the res for a while and had my fair share of crazes. One night, I'm out driving around and I get a call from dispatch. There's a UFO out in one of the farmers' fields. Okay, so I get to the house and talk with the guy. We know each other. He doesn't seem to be that loony. I turn my spotlight onto said field and sure as shit, there's something not quite right there. It's metal and shit. So I go bebopping through the furrows and hoping my scardiness isn't showing because it's freaky. It was an autumn night with the wind howling and clouds blowing overhead. I get closer. I have one hand on my holstered gun and the other shining my flashlight. I was rehearsing what I was going to say to our new overlords, and then my brain finally clicks as to what the fuck it actually was. A wad of those stupid Mylar balloons, all blown up and caught on some weeds. I'm talking like 20 of those fuckers, just chilling and scaring the shit out of me. I grabbed them and walked back out to the farmer. He started laughing, and then I did too. I handed them over to him and got back in my squad, still shaking. The sad part was, he passes away a few years ago, and his family gave me those deflated balloons that he had kept. I have them in my basement now. Eater, holy shit. I work overnights, so I apologize for getting back to everyone so late. I used to work as a cop on the Sisseton-Wahpeton Reservation in South Dakota. Loved every second of it. From playing stoop with the little kids, where we'd sit on the front steps of someone's house and eat snacks, to finding all the different loopholes to get someone help. I miss it. But it's not conducive to family life either. Thanks everyone for all the upvotes, awards, etc. too. I'm taking a slightly different approach in answering this question. A couple of months ago, I got a /questionable activity call. It's a catch-all for anything suspicious. The caller stated she believed someone had snuck into her backyard, climbed up onto her second floor deck, and then left an imprint of their dick on her sliding door. I show up to the call about 5 minutes later, and she's mad at me because I didn't schedule an appointment to come over, and her kids saw me. She didn't want her kids to think something bad had happened. After we get past her anger towards me for showing up, she shows me the glass sliding door in question. In all fairness to the caller, there was a sizable smudge and imprint on the glass. However, the imprint looked nothing like any penis I've ever seen. In fact, the imprint looked really similar to the dead bird laying on the deck next to the door. When I pointed out the dead bird and explained my belief that no dick had been placed on her door, the caller became incredibly irate and told me she moved to our city because it was supposed to be very safe. But now she was thinking of moving away because naked people throwing dead birds at her house was more than she could handle. Realizing I would not be able to rationalize with Dick Bird, I left and wrote my report. Some people don't deserve to call 911 edit. Thanks for the silver edit too. Thanks for the gold. This one happened to my friend. First day on the job. He's driving with his partner. Normally we don't have partners, but for the first 6 months, when you start you are paired up. Also, we have community volunteers which are like unarmed, but trained individuals who assist the peace officer. So 3 people total. He's driving down a highway when he sees a man on the side of the road near an entrance to an access road for a cottage. The man is naked and covered in blood and pointing down the access road, trying to get their attention. Turn on lights and go down road. The man is signaling them, and when they pull over he just leaps into a woods and starts running alongside the road. They follow. They get to a cottage and the door is open. They turn to look at the naked man and he's gone. Vanished into the woods. There is also visibly blood all over the door and deck. Supervisor gets out, goes into the trunk, gets the shotgun, and gives it to the unarmed auxiliary saying something like, "Cover our back and try not to shoot us. We are going in." He and my friend draw their pistols and go. When they get inside there is blood everywhere. Like from a movie. All over the walls. Furniture. Just everywhere. Enter the living room. There is a man on the couch with a couple knife wounds to his stomach, but is alert and seems actually not that bad. But he's holding a pit bull on a leash. "If you let the dog go it's dead," says supervisor. Guy ties leash to side of couch. Puts his hands up. But won't say a word. "Is there anyone here? What happened? Are you okay?" Nothing. He's not answering. They place him under arrest and auxiliary takes him to the car. They continue searching upstairs, clearing rooms out until they get to one of the bedrooms. They look in and there is a guy under some covers, but still obviously awake. "Show me your hands." The guy hears them, throws the blanket off to reveal he is also naked, stabbed, and basically about to die from blood loss. Paramedics come. House is fully cleared out. As it turns out the 3 guys, including naked forest man, were all drug dealers just having a get together. They started doing ecstasy, and after getting really high it turned into a bit of a gay orgy. In a moment of lucidity one of the drug dealers realized he wasn't gay and grabbed a knife, which escalated into a gay orgy knife fight. Hence all the blood. That was day 1. One time we got a call about a minor wreck in a highway corridor. We get there. I'm handling the accident. 100 yards down there is a car on flats. And another further down from that, unrelated to the accident, one of the drivers walked back to us and told us a sketchy guy had been stopping at these cars to offer his help in fixing the flats. The theory was that he threw something on the road to flatten the tires so that he could help and get money from the drivers. I'm stuck at the back end of this mess, on the radio trying to get another unit to detain the shady guy. All of a sudden I look over and there's a guy in nothing but a hospital gown and forth hanging out of his arm just tiddling along the shoulder. The nearest hospital was several miles away, so I have no idea how he covered that distance with nobody noticing. So here I'm with 1. A car wreck, 2. A guy possibly flattening tires on purpose, and 3. An escaped hospital patient, all completely unrelated, on a major highway late at night. A friend of mine is a cop in the UK and his story is more WTF as he saw it unfold, but missed how it all started. It was his first week out on patrol, and he was assigned to an experienced partner. They respond to a burglary in progress and are told that a nearby dog unit was on the scene already. When they arrive at the property, they hear a commotion outside that's clearly between an officer and a suspect, and they open the garden gate to assist the dog unit. What they then witness is a suspect face down on the grass, an officer stamping on the suspect's back whilst holding his arm up near her hip and shouting "Stop resisting," and the police dog absolutely going to town on this guy's buttocks with his teeth. The suspect is, unsurprisingly, struggling and resisting, and then ends up kicking the dog. The dog then latches onto the guy's leg, starts ferociously tugging, pulls it off, and then runs towards the new cops on the scene with it. It turns out that was a false leg, which no one except the suspect knew at the time. And my buddy the cop said he just froze whilst trying to figure out how the hell he calls this in, and whether or not he should retrieve the man's leg from the police dog. My dad told me the one time he went to a house and a woman pulled something out of her shopping bag and started hitting him with it. He's trying to stop her, but the other officers are all laughing. Finally he realizes that she's beating him with a dildo. Edit. My dad is loving that. So many people upvoted his story. Might not really fit here as I'm not a cop, but still a WTF. As a brand new air nurse, we had 2 police officers drop off a naked man bleeding from his groin area. We were informed he was not in custody, but they would be in the waiting room to arrest him. When he was discharged, the city would have had to pay for his care if he was under arrest. The man refused to say anything without his lawyer, so all I knew was the chief complaint. Cut on scrotum. I take off the towel and get to see my first testicle, as in without the normal fleshy covering. The way the skin was ripped, I thought for sure a police dog was involved. I'll spare you the rest of the gory details. Someone manages to get the backstory out of the cops. Dude was in the shower when they arrived to arrest him on a meth charge. He runs and tries to hop over a chain link fence. Not nearly as exciting as I was thinking. I found 3 kids one day running next to a busy highway. The oldest was 5. We finally got them identified and figured out they lived about a mile away. We got there. They were in the care of their adult, 20-ish, sister while their parents were on vacation for 2 weeks. The sister decided she'd rather pop Xanax and smoke weed than deal with the kids. So she locked them in their bedroom for about 10 days, occasionally sliding food and water past the door. There were piss stains on the baseboards in the bedroom from where the kids had decided their bathroom should be. Finally the 5-year-old had enough and figured out how to unlock the bedroom window and make a break for it. That's nowhere near the darkest stuff I've seen. We don't like to talk about it. Edit. Sorry folks, I work nights and just woke up. She went to jail for endangering a child, and as far as I know the case is still pending. The kids were seized by CPS and held by a foster family overnight until the parents could drive home. This is my uncle's story, not a cop, but the call was sent to the fire department instead due to the strangeness. The truck was sent on a call for an unknown disturbance, which basically means anything in the world. They get sent an address and that's pretty much it. Truck drives down the street looking for this address and they get to the end and all they can see is an abandoned lot with nothing but bushes. Even though they can't see anyone, they have to get out and investigate, so my uncle and a couple of the guys get out of the truck and start walking around with the usual fire department call out. They didn't hear anything for a while and were about to pack it in as another pointless prank call when my uncle walked past a bush and heard rustling. He looks over and sees a man standing kind of awkwardly behind a bush. "Hey Mr. Fireman, did you call 911? Uncle yes sir." My uncle steps a bit closer and realizes how man is buck-ass naked and standing at a strange angle. He motions to another firefighter that he found the caller and goes behind the bush to begin assessing. He is a firefighter slash paramedic. That's when he realizes that the man has what he refers to a fucking bunny tail on his butt. Of course they try to get the man to explain why he had called in distress and what was going on. After a bit of avoidance, the man finally admits that he had taken a toilet brush cleaner and shoved the handle up his bum. Honestly, no idea why anyone would think this is a good idea generally. Being the enlightened individual that he is, He chose one with a hook on the end to hang up in a bathroom. What my uncle and the other firefighters assumed was that the hook had gotten stuck on something internally because they couldn't pull it out, and it caused the man significant discomfort when they tried. My uncle left the man with another firefighter getting his information and went back to the truck to call for an ambulance. Of course, at this point he always mentions that he walked around the truck to see the rest of the company trying to silently dive laughter out of view of the bushes. When the ambulance arrives, my uncle meets them with a grin on his face and tells them to brace themselves before walking them over to the bushes. They assess the man and conclude that there is no way for them to remove the toilet brush in the field and that they have to admit him to the hospital for surgery. The only problem was that they couldn't figure out how to get him into the gurney without causing him to move in a way that caused him more pain. They end up throwing a blanket over him, and the firefighters help maneuver him into a sort of downward dog/mountain position with his bum in the air to keep the toilet brush at the right angle. At that point my uncle decided that the fire department was done with the call and the paramedics could handle it from there, and loaded up the company onto the truck. As they began to drive away, he says they were loading this guy into the rig as we drove off, and the last I saw of him was that blanket falling off and that damn bunny tail of his sticking straight up in the air. My uncle did follow up on this call with a friend at the hospital. The brush was removed surgically due to the hook getting stuck on something internally and causing the man to have some serious health complications. He has way more stories due to being a working firefighter since he was 18 in Southern California, 62 today. Show up to a trouble unknown call. Teenage looking girl walks out the front door as I arrive and sits on a chair in the front listening to an iPod. This was pretty disarming for me. She was clearly not distressed at all from whatever the trouble unknown was. I didn't even disturb her as I knocked on the front door. I can see an adult male through the side glass by the door. He has a look of absolute terror. As he reaches the door, a crazed looking woman attacks him from behind, biting his shoulder like a zombie. I would later learn this is his wife. Holy shit. Dispatch. Give me the channel and get me more officers here now. I open the door and the fight is on. Pull this woman off and wrestle her to the ground. Face down. She's very small framed. Probably 5 feet and 100 pounds maximum. I'm a foot taller and 80 pounds heavier. She's screaming and flailing. I grab hold of her right arm, attempting to put it behind her back for handcuffing, but she is supernaturally strong for some reason. I've got both hands on her right wrist now trying to control her, and she's not giving at all. I try pain compliance, muscle gouges, anything to give me an advantage. No response. Still fighting. It felt like this was going on for a long time, but in reality it was a few minutes. Finally backup arrives, and he immediately goes to grab her left arm. Seeing what I'm trying to accomplish, I'm finally able to get a handcuff on her wrist and pin it to her back, and my partner cuffs the other wrist, but she slips out. Small frame, small hand/wrist. This happened a few times in a row, and finally out of frustration I yelled, just clamp the fucking cuff all the way down. We'll adjust it when she's under control. Finally get her cuffed, but she's still flailing and screaming. Other officers arrive at this point as well as paramedics. They're unable to assess her at all really. The husband tells us they bought some cheap weed from a sketchy dude in town, and after smoking it she flipped out. I assume it was laced with something. He said he smoked too, but didn't have a reaction. So who knows? We had to drive this lady up to the hospital in a patrol car. She calmed down a little, but the entire ride she was rambling about nonsense. The hospital was prepared and had several large nurses waiting, and we got her strapped down to a bed. I told the staff about the weed and said good luck. When my adrenaline was gone, my forearms were so sore, they felt like rocks from fighting with this tiny woman. Moral of the story: don't smoke shit you bought from the town crackhead. I used to be a cop. We got a call from a guy who claimed to be the victim of a robbery and was incapacitated in his home and had only just managed to reach his phone and call us. We arrived to a trailer home that was totally empty except for a man in hardcore fetish gear tied to some sort of sex swing. I mean, there was nothing else in this house except the gym tied to the sex swing. Nothing. No furniture. Not even curtains. Okay dude. What the fuck? Sex gimp. Well, you see. Officer, I hired 2 Asian hookers to spank me while I was in the swing. Nothing illegal there. No sexual acts. Just some spanking and they'd leave. Well, the girls arrived. Tied me to the swing. Then, 2 Asian guys showed up, beat the living shit out of me. Then pulled up a U-Haul trailer and stole literally everything that I own. Before leaving me hanging here with my cell phone because they said they knew nobody would believe my story anyways. But the cops would probably chase them for a murder. I still don't know if I believe his story, but never found any evidence to suggest that he was lying either. I just didn't find anything at all.